everyone, this week I'm going to be doing a little bit of a different video, and we're going to be doing a tutorial on how to put a mirrored finish on a metal surface. Now I'm going to be specifically putting this mirrored finish on a copper ingot, but I am sure that this will work for whatever metal that you need to use. No guarantees, but it's going to be with also relatively cheap materials. Okay, so real quick, before I begin, we are using Craftsman sandpaper. This is a generic variety pack. It goes from 320 grit all the way to 2000 grit. Cost about $12 or something like that at Lowe's. Pretty easy to find. And then just because I wanted to have a little bit more of an intermediate spot to go to, because it jumps from 800 to 1500 grit in that packet, I also have some 1000 grit sandpaper, and that's all I'm using. And once I start, I'm just going, if this is the top of the ingot, I'm just sanding straight back and forth on the ingot to kind of get the grain structure, all of it to be going the same direction. If you sand in kind of a circular motion, it's going to be kind of messy. It's not really going to be a very nice finish in my opinion. If you have power tools maybe, but I'm sticking with just straight back and forth, and that's how we're doing this. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is use 320 grit sandpaper on this to kind of get rid of that top layer on the surface. Next, we're going to use 400 grit, which is also going to do the same general job as the 320 grit. It's just going to be a little bit finer. Next is going to be 600 grit. And next we have 800 grit. And now we have 1000 grit. This is where the finish actually starts to be nice. Next we have 1500 grit. And finally we have 2000 grit. Now you can see that the finish is pretty nice and it's almost mirrored. However, it doesn't quite have the sheen that I want, so this is where we start to use the polish. So without further ado, let's use the polish. Now all that I am doing with this polish here is I'm kind of mixing it together in this sock, and then I'm kind of just going back and forth, side to side, after I get the polish on. And then after I've gone side to side all the way up the length of the ingot, I then start to go forward and back a little bit and kind of just work the polish into it. And yeah, that's about it. The polishing side of this is pretty straightforward. It just gives the ingot a little bit extra of a nice sheen. So as you can see, this came out pretty nicely. You can go to further grits and go up to 3500, or even at certain places, if you go to get sandpaper for car painting, you can potentially find up to 6000 grit. I may go to that grit in the future, but for now, that's all that we need. Okay, so as you can see, that is not a very difficult process. You can probably go right to your local hardware store and get all of the things that I use for this pretty easily. Although one thing to note is I did have a vice grip to keep the ingot still. You might need to look into something like that, although I'm sure that you can just hold the ingot in your hand or whatever surface in your hand and just sand right on it. It's a pretty straightforward process. I know this is a little bit of a shorter video this week. Like I said earlier, unfortunately, I haven't been able to use my furnace much, so I thought I'd do kind of a tutorial kind of video, even though it's pretty straightforward anyways. So that's all I have for everyone this week. Next week, we will be back to doing furnace shenanigans. And yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Bye.